Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Divine Creator, we ask that the light of highest awareness fill the minds and hearts of those who are open to your light. We ask that they be assisted and strengthened in their resolve to achieve peace using peaceful means. May their minds, their hearts, and their actions reflect the divine will to good for all. Comfort, strengthen, and support those who are in a difficult situation in their mind, body, or spirit. Bring confidence to them that your divine hand is at work in their life. Amen.
Well, welcome again, and my name is Reverend Mary Huber. I'm the pastor of CCWH, known as the Community Chapel of Holistic Healing. We are a non-denominational spiritual fellowship founded in 1977 by Reverend Michelle Lusan, a mystic and channel of the multidimensional consciousness. We were placed here in the Washington, D.C. area in our beginnings due to an apparition Michelle had way back in the earlier 70s. And Swami Sivananda asked that we be placed here so that we would be a light for the nation's capital. Our mission overall is to aid in personal and global spiritual transformation. CCWH has chapel services twice a month. Our schedule is on our website at ccwh.com under events, and we have other activities during the week as well. And I hope you will check our website for the dates and times of those activities. We are here tonight to bring the light into the world for those who need this light. At this time, if you haven't muted your selves, you might mute yourself so that we can continue with this evening. Before we start, we will always begin with what we call our three healers, which is the faith, hope, and charity affirmation, channeled by Michelle very early on in our organization. This was given to us by Spirit to bring complete alignment within our being with saying these affirmations. We'll say them now. I believe in the spiritual existence of myself as a perfect image of the divine creator. In this reflection that is my physical embodiment, I have faith in the supreme guidance of my soul for my balance, my needs, and my opportunities. Outside of myself, there are also perfect images, and nothing can delude my thinking otherwise. The hope affirmation, acknowledging my faith in the omnipresence of my divinity. I hope for realization, awareness, and acknowledgement of the existence of the great I am within myself. And the charity affirmation, in understanding faith, in knowing hope, I pledge my actions, my desires, and my thoughts to the performances of myself on the physical planes of the earth, to honor, to love, and to enlighten all that is a reflection of the divine outside myself, so that my perfection is imaged back to my Creator. So help me God. This evening's speaker, Reverend Gloria Kauser, speaking to us on a topic very dear to our hearts and dear to most awakening people on the planet. And that has to do with our relationship with our own I am presence within in the form of a communication. She brings her wealth of information forward. She was actually with the very first class that Michelle had of those that she ordained in the organization very far back. I think it was 1979 when she was ordained. So she's been a practicing minister for a long time, and for a number of years was also serving as our pastor. I'd like you to understand that she has a great wealth of background in community work and connection with the communities around in spiritual matters, and is a light for many people. I'll introduce you now to Reverend Gloria Kauser.
Here we go. Thank you so much, Mary. That was very kind. My topic tonight, actually, I want to note that we're in Mercury retrograde after the eclipse. So there's a lot of different energy afoot in the ethers. And for that reason, I decided to draw upon some of the specific and unique teachings of Michelle Luson and what I'm going to describe tonight, because I think it has a lot to do with where we're headed, what we can accomplish, and her example very much in bringing new information forward about who we are, what we are, and how the spiritual nature and the primal nature, the physical nature, are combined in us, because we are in fact a part of divinity. Divinity is within us. Within us is a holy of holies in which the divine spark resides. But like Michelle, and probably like me, I was raised in an eclectic spiritual background. My mom was Catholic. My father was African Methodist Episcopal, AME, the Black Church. And at a certain point in time, I was introduced to Buddhism and other interesting religions, African religions, Eastern religions, Caribbean religions, etc., and came around to the full circle. Today, I probably identify as a Christian Buddhist, but the tapes, the Akashic tapes, will bear witness to what's all involved. Mystics, are you a mystic in this lifetime? And I want to invite us to have some conversation at the end of what I have to say about your feelings on the subject. When I grew up and was trained in the Catholic educational system, mystics sounded like people that weren't ordinary. They sounded like people who had unusual gifts or kind of floated above everybody else. And the dictionary describes mystic people as those who have a lot of extraordinary spiritual devotion, and that contemplate all the time or meditate all the time, and they've surrendered themselves to the higher consciousness, the altered states of consciousness, in which they experience God, or what they call sometimes, if we're not giving God a name, the ultimate truth. And over the centuries, there have been many written accounts about mystics in both Christianity as well as Eastern religions and Islamic religions, and what they talk about as the mystical component to these religions. Every major religion seems to have a mystical component to it. In Catholicism, they talk about the book of Revelations being the mystical component. In the Islamic religion, the Sufis emerge as a mystical component. You have in the Jewish religion, the Kabbalistic practices emerging as a mystical aspect, and on and on. In the African religions, they have divination systems that are practiced and represent a mystical component. But that doesn't help us better understand the fact that these esoteric or hidden aspects of the different religions betray the fact that each one of us can become a mystic or have mystical experiences. And most certainly in today's time, we need more people to open up to the mysticism behind what they believe or in their relationship with God. The saints and the yogis who demonstrated higher awareness were known to have certain gifts of the spirit, such as prophecy or healing, clairvoyance, and other feats. But I've come to the conclusion that we all need to move in that direction to open up our spiritual gifts and to do whatever it takes, not in some hidden or unusual manner, but sometimes living just day to day in the presence of God gives us the mystical experience. I came across a website that I thought was very helpful, and it was by a young couple. I call them young because I'm in my 70s, who are based in Australia. And it's a beautiful, beautiful website. They call it Lone Wolf, lonewolf.com. Loner Wolf, I'm sorry, LONERWOLF.com. And I hope you might want to investigate it, because they've concentrated a lot of their work on helping people who are undergoing a spiritual awakening process. They call themselves authors and teachers of the not psychosocial, but the combination between psychospiritual lane. And they've got so many resources there. I was very impressed with what they presented. They had a section on mystics that I thought you'd be interested in. They describe 12 different signs that you're a mystic. And I'm going to go through some of those with you, and you can figure out or feel whether or not you identify or these are familiar to you. The first one is that you find it hard to fit in and belong in this world and crave some kind of home or spiritual family to connect with. Another one is you feel dissatisfied with your life, no matter how much material success you've been able to experience. That's another characteristic they attribute. Or you feel aimless and lost, and yet feel called upon to make a meaningful change on this planet. You feel disillusioned by various religious, self-help, and spiritual paths. Many people feel that some of this stuff is just superficial and not deep enough for you to give attention to. Or you intensely crave a divine, God-filled life. That's a passion of yours. Maybe you've undergone a spiritual awakening, a Kundalini awakening, or a dark night of the soul. You know, we've heard about people who have the spontaneous Kundalini awakening, which sometimes confers upon them an involuntary state of being in the altered zone. A man named Gopi Krishna, for example, who was just a bureaucrat, and all of a sudden one day he woke up to experience the Kundalini throughout his body, and he'd had no control over it. And for him, it was, yes, it was a mystical experience in the sense that he went places in consciousness that were extraordinary, but at the same time, he couldn't control it, and he experienced a lot of pain in his body and back and forth. And that is, I wonder sometimes whether or not that happened to him because he didn't really open through a specific process or training or in a gradual way. But that something happened to him. He could not control. On the other hand, people in a day-to-day way, if you feel everything intensely, if you're a highly sensitive person or an empath, you may be a mystic. Empathic tendencies have sort of increased in the last few years. There are people who refer to themselves as empaths or empathic. They can feel what other people feel. They are so sensitive that sometimes they have to withdraw or create boundaries around how intensive or deep they will involve themselves in a relationship with others or in a counseling circumstance. Or maybe you're the kind of person who craves solitude and enjoys a lot of introspection. I find myself in that zone oftentimes. And I see it in some of my grandchildren. Or you've experienced a spiritual crisis of some sort. I don't know, sometimes when people reach the quarter of their life or the midlife, then things fall apart and things don't make the same sense as they used to. They might have a dark night of the soul. How many of you have had an experience of a dark night of the soul? Okay, or some sort of existential crisis. Maybe ever since childhood, you've been a deep thinking and contemplative person. Any deep thinkers here as a child? There we go. Or you long to unite with something greater than you, a sense that being egotistical is a shame, or that the ego itself is a false self. But sometimes people come up with that. I don't think I had that problem, but or you've had transitory glimpses of oneness or illumination or enlightenment. Now that could possibly happen as a result of a meditation or walking in nature, in the woods or in the mountains or the hills, or by the sea. In short, if you've had a burning desire to reconnect with your soul and unite with spirit, you may be a mystic. You may be headed for a mystical experience. From time to time, many or most of us have or are having transcendental experiences and synchronicities out of the ordinary, experiences that are not part of the mundane reality. Many of us mystics who have come together through CCWH have and continue to identify or refer to ourselves as light workers. in the sense of spiritual light. Another metaphysical term for us that's been used, especially from some of the readings that Michelle did, was that we've been called initiates. And we wonder who initiated us to come here and how. Light workers and initiates can be both one and the same, meaning one has made a commitment to help increase the amount of spiritual light in the world. And she often would describe that the healers were given a task of trying to keep the light in the world as the light was dimming in the early parts of the Dark Ages. And of course, healers were under attack back then. And particularly many of the many women practiced herbal medicine and were killed for doing so by folks who paraded around in the Inquisition. But they were working to keep the light in the world and help people who needed help. As initiates or as light workers, we've chosen to recognize a higher purpose to our lives and to seek to undergo personal transformation in a holistic manner, meaning with our minds, our bodies, and our spirits to be directed according to the higher purpose, to follow in alignment with the God Most High. And in so doing, we are called upon to model a better existence by creating harmony and balance inwardly and on a personal level, and outwardly in our relationships and what we are doing day to day. I worked in an arena involving changing social structures. I was in the field of housing and community development. And there were various types of communities that I worked with. When I first started consulting in this field, urban development, I was approached by a little Japanese woman in DC who was so upset over the displacement of low-income people from housing as a result of the marketplace, the real estate market pushing towards condominium conversions. And all they had to do was put their building up for sale, and people would get a notice to have to move out. And as this increased at such a rapid rate, there was no place for these folks to go except move in with somebody else or become homeless. And she ended up starting an interfaith group. And again, I was just amazed because she wasn't from here. She came from Japan. She was married to a diplomat. And but was so moved by what was going on, she assembled people from the Catholic Church, people from Protestant churches. She even had an Islamic leader on her board, and she put them all together in a board of directors to sponsor an organization that would go into situations where this was happening, where the buildings were going up for sale and they were getting ready to put people out, and organize the tenants to take control, to have an alternative to buy the buildings themselves and become cooperatives. And of course, cooperative housing is an alternative to the type of housing where people just remain tenants. They don't really have the kind of relationships with one another that they can work together and so forth. But her name was Alice Vedder. She passed away a couple of years ago, but the organization was called Muscle. And developers began to fear the fact that muscle was on the scene. Ministers united to support community life endeavors, Muscle. And I worked for Muscle for a couple of years, and there I learned how this process could occur, what it took for there to be somebody in the community to stand up and have the courage to say, no, not here. We will take a stand and we will push back against what losing our homes in this sense. And it became a spiritual experience, really, with people looking out for one another, with people coming together to make decisions together, to come to grips with issues of integrity. You know, do I want to sell out to the developer who wants to pay everybody to move and leave so that nothing can happen, or do I want to try to stay and make this happen? So from that experience to the other experiences I subsequently had, that was really a foundation stone for me. I learned that it was the consciousness in people that made the difference between whether something was going to be successful and maintained or fall apart. Because the outer habitation, the outer environment became a reflection of the inner consciousness of the people and whether they were able to follow some ideals of working and being together as a community. And where that was missing, of course, the environment reflected it. And that community after community after community, that I could observe that. So the idea to me of personal transformation, helping to bring about social transformation is key. They go together. If there is not, there are not ideals and values that are being promoted and practiced, people caring for one another, faith, hope, and love in action, then the chances of success or in the resiliency that has to develop won't happen. In any way, well, in any event, today is no different. Resiliency is definitely needed in a lot of quarters, and it's becoming more and more difficult in some certain parts of the world, many parts of the world, for people to have resiliency because of the environmental devastation that has been happening. So many communities around the world will lose their ability to be habitats for different cultures because the sea is rising. But anyway, as for us who happen to have the opportunity to live here, from time to time we likely are receiving what I call taps from the soul level, little taps by the soul level. By taps, I mean seemingly coincidences or symbols and synchronicities that are engineered by our higher self or the spirit guides and teachers to help us evolve and to help us carry out our light work. And as Michelle used to say, survival of the fittest has now shifted to survival of the most spiritual. In 2024, and now, it's essential for us to better understand this idea that she taught about the dual natures that we operate by as multi-dimensional human beings. Our essential makeup, she taught, consists of our soul's energy system, which is activated by Kundalini, and our primal physical energy system, which has the libido as its creative source, its creative force. The soul that has incarnated within each of us vibrates on a subatomic level at a universal frequency with a distinct energy field. And it's been very difficult for the scientists to record these things, to measure these things, because we don't have the technology necessarily to do so. But people who have some of the clairsensitive gifts are able to perceive what's going on, see the evidence of the soul and its energy systems, which is different from the physical, the primal system. As I said, the soul vibrates on a subatomic level with universal frequency, the same frequency that draws a soul to its mother when the mother becomes pregnant. That's a universal frequency that's embedded in the heart. And the soul has chakras, as a spiritual anatomy, which Michelle liked to call the spiritual stem. The life force of the soul and the soul body is etheric, or what's called ectoplasmic, and it's fused to the physical body. It's overlay, it's interwoven, if you will. On the other hand, the primal energy system vibrates on the atomic and molecular levels, and it vibrates at the electromagnetic frequencies, which is in a different zone than the universal frequencies. Primal energy uses the emotional response system and a physical anatomy, meaning the glands and the organs, the nervous system. And our soul nature, our soul's energy system is motivated, activated, if you will, by higher intelligence and the spiritual blueprint that we carry. While our primal nature works by intellect and instinct, and the two are woven together. These dual systems meet in the central nerve network. And Michelle liked to talk about the central nerve network. Dalai Lama calls the nervous system the media society's nervous system. It's always broadcasting and amplifying stuff, communicating throughout the body, the physical body and the spiritual body. All in all, Michelle identified 12 major chakras, of which 8 relate to how our soul can influence our mind. And these 7 or 8 chakras co-produce our self-consciousness or personality and flow to us the spiritual creative force, meaning your Kundalini comes through the chakra, energy comes through the chakras into our experience, our day-to-day experience. When we were doing the cosmic clocks, now, how many of you remember when Michelle was channeling about the cosmic clocks? Any of you? And she would describe how it was affecting, how the energy was coming into humanity according to the cosmic clocks and the different chakras that were impacted and the Kundalini energy that was at work, which resulted in the concentration of certain different, certain types of activities, whether it be in the financial world or it be in the educational world, etc., played a role. It influenced people's behavior. It was bringing about what I call the behaviors as God in their lives mattered, but in their physical and spiritual anatomies mattered. So our dual systems and their principles need to work together in harmony so that enough life force will be supplied that's required for each of our personal performances and accomplishments to take place during our lifetime. You have to have a partnership between the spiritual and the physical. And if you are at odds with one another, you are not going to experience the success that you need to get very far. Without an understanding of the partnership between the spiritual needs and the physical health, we can experience internal and external conflicts. We can experience physical illness and the lack of creative fulfillment. So the question before us is, how do we best honor and fulfill the need to develop the awareness and practices required for personal growth, for our healing, for our transformation on a personal level? It's been almost a year and a half since the pandemic of 2021, 22, thereabouts. Pandemic kind of got extended as people start suffering from long COVID. But it's time that we start assessing the state of things in our personal lives. And I think during this time of Mercury retrograde, it's a good time to sit down and start reflecting about what's going on, the state of harmony, the state of balance in your life, state of your well-being, in the day-to-day functioning and in the roles that you play in the external world, in your relationships. Are you or are we continuing to make progress with our personal transformation going forward? Or have we regressed? What has changed since then? And what may need to change? What might we expand upon? Or what new could we introduce to make a positive difference? What challenges are you facing? And what solutions have you put in place? As modern mystics, we have the benefit of knowing that we are not alone in figuring out our pathway to becoming our best self. The evolution we are to gain consciously in this life occurs from this moment on. And in thinking about the questions that I've raised, I wonder what would be helpful at this point in time. We're not at the same age or stage in life that we were when we first learned these things back in the 70s and the 80s. We're in a different place, and sometimes our generation doesn't see things the way other generations see them. What kinds of things could we be doing, or what are we opening up to? How many of us meditate? How many of us meditate on a daily basis? Try to. Try to. But it's difficult because there's more effluvia in the atmosphere. There's more, used to be when we started with email, it was just, like one thing. A few things would come through, or it was a work thing that happened. Your email now, you have to protect your privacy. You have to sift through a lot of stuff to get to the kernels of what's important for you to be reading or exposed to. It's a lot of effluvia out there. And it's hard for people to concentrate. No wonder there is hyperactivity among the youth, the ADD, and parents having to resort to drugs to get them to focus. It occurred to me that it would be a good thing to attempt to do to resurrect the creative wellness type program that Michelle started. I worked with Michelle in those years when she was pioneering creative wellness, and we had the Nemo Foundation, and we as a group went through the testing and went through the protocols and took on the nutritional habits, the natural supports, the understanding about color and how color was energy and energy affected us, how our attitudes and emotions featured in, since it affected our nervous system. And learning more about who we are from a personality standpoint, having to deal with our strengths and weaknesses. How many of us are still tracking our strengths and weaknesses today? Maybe not so much as before, but with a conscious effort, that program took you there to measure up. Am I evolving is the right word, but how am I doing in relationship to loving my neighbors, loving one another, showing love towards my family members, showing compassion to other people, towards other people, or towards myself? I think that it would be very helpful for us to attempt, since we have adapted, this Zoom mechanism for many purposes, to try and pursue a version of creative wellness that might be presented on Zoom. So in closing, I just offer to you that idea, and would like to hear from you. What are some of the things that you are doing now to kind of keep yourself on the path? Are there any individuals who would like to make a comment or have questions about the things that we've talked about this evening?
Hey, Gloria. I would love the idea of doing creative wellness on Zoom. I think that's a great, it helped me so much when I was first starting out that I think it could really help a lot of people, especially being delivered by a virtual platform. We could get it out to a lot of people. Would be really helpful for other people who are either just starting out in metaphysics or folks who are well versed in metaphysics, like we have here, and really digging into those differences in in our
Even
personality.
the muscle testing, which
Yeah.
now, has been found to be very valid in a number of arenas.
Yeah, it's now reflexology is now a curriculum in colleges. It's mainstreamed. And whereas when we were doing it, it wasn't, people wondered what it was about, how it could possibly work. And they've proven that it does. So, yeah, that's one thing. Your second question was about, what are we doing ourselves? And you hit on it. It was the meditation piece. For me, meditation is where it all comes from, that going within, that connecting with your spirit. And so I'm trying to meditate more, get to that every day, right? But it's really what helps me be able to connect and own my mystical nature. So, so thank you for this talk today.
Well, certainly, in meditation helps to stimulate the Kundalini energy, the soul force to come through to us. And if we practice it on a daily basis, so much more so that you will even be able to get to the point of hearing your own inner voice, if you have that particular gift, of being shown daily from your spirit signs and symbols and synchronicities that will help you in your walk with God. Back during the, I guess, 16th century, there was a monk. They call him Brother Lawrence. He was not an educated person, and he joined a monastery and became the cook. But what he decided to do was to talk to God every day, every single day. And with everything that he was doing, that he was charged to do, he would always have a conversation with God. And he never failed to get done the things that he needed to get done. He developed a love for God that he relied upon, even when he was anxious or afraid, but developed that sense of the presence of God in your life, such that it's an open relationship, that at any time you don't have to go to a church to talk to God. You don't have to have a minister to talk to God. Just talk to God because God is in everything. And what is divine light? I found a wonderful definition of light in what was called the Aquarian Gospel of Christ. How many of you are familiar with that particular book? In the Aquarian Gospel of Christ, it defined the divine light as being the breath of God vibrating at the speed of thought. So can you imagine the breath of God coursing within us as the life force, the chi, the prana? And it's all accessible every moment of the day because we can't stop breathing. That is God. That is God coming through to us and supporting our awakening process. Anybody else have a comment or a question or suggestion?
Gloria, I'd like to speak on this for a second. We just finished a training camp for the next Kairos weekend, where we go into prison and lead people to Jesus Christ over 3.5 days. And one of the points that I made, and I'll condense this very quickly, is that 2,000 years ago, ordinary people were being chosen by Jesus to become disciples. And when you become a believer, you become a disciple. So you're given all of this incredible power, and who's using it? I follow a fellow named Praying Medic out of Arizona, whose real name is Dave Hayes. He's written a lot of books, and he's got a series of 6 that have to do with essentially what we're talking about now from various perspectives. In fact, I've got emotional healing on my desk, power and authority, divine healing made simple. But the reality was, when I was talking to people, I said, that was 2,000 years ago. What are we doing today? You know, our world has gotten to the point where if we could go to our state insurance or state farm insurance guy and get a fire policy so we're not going to burn in hell, a lot of people would be really motivated to do that. But the real answer is meditation. The real answer is talking to God constantly. And I reminded them that about 5 years ago, I gave a 10-minute devotional at prison. I said, I'm here to talk to you about tithing. Well, you should have seen the look on the faces of the volunteers.
I'll bet.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, I don't want your money. You could see the size of relief. I said, but God wants your time. He wants 10% of your time. That's 2.4 hours a day. And I went over that and over that and over that. And at the end, one of my good friends came up and said, Rob, are you really serious about praying 2.4 hours a day? I said, absolutely, but maybe not as intensely as you may be thinking. It's having God on your mind and saying, God, what do you think about this? And, you know, it's relationship working. And I said, somebody else had said to me, well, you know, how are we supposed to do 2 things at once? I said, well, do you drive? He said, of course I drive. I said, do you listen to the radio while you drive? Yeah. Well, I said, there you go. I said, it's really that simple. We make it complicated because we're scared to do it. This has been a fabulous talk, Gloria. Fabulous. It brings home the fact that there are more people waking up out there, and I'm not talking about the politically kind of stuff. They're becoming more aware of the human need for change to make our lives better and know that we have the power, we just don't know how to direct it. And it's good now to talk to people and really say, you can do this. And work on ways to make them feel empowered. And I think creative wellness, well, whatever modality is going to get people to get to the point where they're doing this themselves would be a fabulous thing. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, because it is, you have to experience God. You have to open yourself to that and allow yourself to be led. I visited a community once called Findhorn. Does anybody recall the stories of Findhorn? It's at the tip of the Arctic Circle, Arctic Sea in Scotland.
Yep.
And I was going there because I had heard that they were doing these amazing things, and that was my assignment in the government, is to check out these new communities. And so I went to Findhorn and found out that it had all started from the meditation together of these 3 individuals. And where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am also. And it went from a garbage dump to a veritable self-sufficient community because they listened, they attuned, and they followed the guidance that they were receiving inwardly that taught them how to do everything. There are other forms of life on this planet that are evolving that we are not even acknowledging, such as nature intelligence, that is in a position to help us deal with some of the the disasters and the catastrophes and environmental imbalances that are present in the world, but we don't know, we're not acknowledging them as real or investigating how to tune in. Some people are. People who work with flower essences are. People at Paralandra, for example, are.
Mhm.
And they work off of a whole different idea of physics. I'll call it spiritual physics that exceeds and goes beyond scientific physics and what it's able to accomplish. And humankind could have been doing these things had there been a different approach, not trying to conquer or, I don't know, restrict or get rid of the plant life and areas in nature that would have been calming and healing for people to live. But here we are. It will come, it can come back. It can come back through small groups like we are in the spiritual family here, getting together and sharing information and sharing practices as to how to do these things. And Finhorn still exists today and is functioning the same way. They started every activity that took place in the community with a prayer, with an attunement to nature and to listen for how to respond. Using pendulums, the dowsers, they are growing as a society, and they are doing things metaphysically that are more, have that component of dowsing has expanded more for people to get into the spiritual use and the healing use of using the pendulums and feeling the energy. Whenever we would have readings with Michelle, how many of you would feel a change in the room, in your energy field? Okay, that was what I was talking about earlier with the etheric, the soul coming through, the Kundalini energy coming through in the etheric body. But people are being sensitized. They're becoming more and more sensitive, except that they're being barraged by all this junk in the airwaves and in the broadcast media and so forth. The pollution is a big problem today. Greed is a big problem, huge problem today. And waste is a big problem. And those three areas, even if taken in on a personal level, just to do something within your own home and household about those notions could contribute in some small way to the reduction of those ills in the world. But anyway, I'm going to stop here and allow us to turn back to a meditation where we can come open ourselves up to what Spirit wants to say to us, communicate to us from thinking about these kinds of things during this period of Mercury retrograde. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. So let's begin by taking a few deep cleansing breaths, closing our eyes, finding that most comfortable position. And next, look up behind your closed eyelids to the center of your forehead, to that third eye chakra. Now imagine extending a golden cord running from the base of your spine down into the earth, like a root growing down into the earth through the layers. And it plugs into the magnetic core of the earth. and we are grounded like a magnet to our planet. We are stable, secure, and fastened to the earth. And now that we're grounded, we can center ourselves by being fully present with our bodies, focusing on our belly button region at the center of your body. This is where you can feel things in your gut and tune into your intuition. It lets us know when something feels right as rain or if something is off. Keep checking in with how your gut feels and let it be your barometer. Next, we can drop all of our external attachments, dropping all of our lists of things to do, and put everything up on that shelf. And when you feel yourself drifting into thoughts or replaying scenes over in your head, just come back to your breathing, back to center, back to self. Now send a silver cord up from the top of your head, up through the sky, and our channel opens wide from the top of our heads out into the heavens as we bring in the light from all around us. As far as the eye can see, we're attracting that magnificent white light to our silver cord. We are a receiver, tuned into the love frequency abundant in the universe, and we emanate love from our hearts to all mankind. As the light comes down our cord, filling us with the light and healing energy, we can breathe easier as it swirls and cleans out any blockages. And we relax more and more, knowing this is a spiritual healing that we are receiving. And we can feel the light overflow from our head and pour out all around us as the light forms a bubble surrounding our bodies like a shield. And we are protected by, in, and through the light. We accept that we are a mystical being and accept the responsibility that comes with it. We acknowledge our helpers in spirit who are with us 24/7. We give them our gratitude. And now we're going to pick up that phone, that spiritual phone, and listen for God, our angels, our healers, our teachers, our guides, and listen for what comes through. Messages or prophecy or insights from spirit as we recognize and resonate with our mystical signs that we've received. We own our own right as a mystic. We can feel our calling coming through for this lifetime through the phone, through the vibratory frequencies that we get. May come in words or pictures, feelings or impressions. As we believe in our mystical abilities and trust the information that we receive from Spirit. As we're surrounded by the light, we know it is intended for our highest good. So we'll take a few seconds here to just listen on the phone for what they have to say, what they've been trying to say, trying to get through to us in our waking and unwaking moments. And when you're ready to return, thank your helpers in spirit for the messages you've received, and let them know you'll be picking up the phone more and more often, and appreciate their guidance. As we hang up the phone for now, know it is always there. We can pick it up anytime. They are always on the line, on the other end, waiting to talk to us or show us something to guide us along our path. They are our coaches for this lifetime. They take their jobs very seriously. They are always on call. Now, when you're ready, you can rub your hands together like you're washing them. Rub up your arm a little bit. Bring yourself back into your physical body. And when you're ready, you can take a deep breath and open your eyes. Please remember to tithe or donate what you can to help keep our ministry and events going in honor of Michelle and all she's done for us and for humanity. It keeps these chapel services going, as well as our prayers for peace every Thursday, our intuitive development workshops on Saturdays, and our spiritual healing sessions on Tuesdays for those in desperate need. Donations can be designated as one-time or scheduled regularly, and they are tax deductible since it is tax season. We certainly cannot do any of this without your support. So keep shining your light and keep sharing the love and blessings you receive from Spirit. And we will join our virtual hands together, singing our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth, with our own words. Let it begin with us.